So the All Blacks will be announcing their side to take on France tonight. But before that, I've got my All Blacks XP. Now, yesterday I released a video and I had two separate lineups, which was met with mixed reviews. Some people did like the fact that we had a strong bench for one and a strong starting side for the other, and others said that I was being indecisive and that I should only be allowed one lineup. So in this video, I've just got the one. I've actually got a few changes compared to what I had yesterday as well. But hopefully this lineup that I've got here is exactly what I'll stick with right up until they do announce the side. Jumping into it, front row for this matchup against France, I have gone number 1 to Mighty Williams, number 2 Asafo Aumua, and number 3 Tyrell Lomax. Now, the benefit of doing this video today is the fact that we now know Yui Antonio will not be available for France. Now, that is a massive hit to their front row, as he is an absolute tank, and it would have been great to see him go head-to-head with Mighty Williams, but sadly now that will not be a reality. Number 2, I've decided to go with Asafo Aumua, giving Cody Taylor a little bit of an easier game coming back from his HIA, so instead he would be off my bench, which I am building to be pretty strong for this matchup. Jumping into the locking jar now, number 4 Scott Barrett, number 5 Tupavai. In both of my lineups that I gave yesterday, that is exactly the combination that I went with. I feel Tui Pelotu off the bench can bring so much to this All Black side. Plus Tupavai, his last week's game up against Ireland was a lot stronger than the week prior up against the English. Scott Barrett, I think he's going to be the underappreciated player for the All Blacks throughout this November international tour. He's just quietly going about his work, and I actually saw an interview with Caleb Clark, and he said about when New Zealand were playing Ireland and there was a bit of off-the-ball stuff happening, and he went in and he got in the Irish player's face. Caleb Clark said that it actually fired him up quite a bit, and I mean, it's a risky tactic for your captain to almost start a fight out there on the field, but if it helps your side try and take it to that next level, I guess we will allow it just in this case. But jumping into the loose forward trio, this is where many questions will soon be answered by Scott Robertson, but in my lineup I have gone number 6 Wallace Satiti, number 7 Duplessis Karefi. Now, I was jockeying between him and Peter Lakai all of last night. That sounds a bit dodgy. I couldn't quite decide which one would be the better option for that 7. You've got Duplessis Karefi, who has already played 2 matches throughout the November internationals, one up against Munster and one up against Georgia. He captained the AB's XV, so he's at least got minutes under his belt, whereas Peter Lakai, the only time that we've seen him get the opportunity was up against Japan. He got 20 minutes off the bench, and it wasn't really enough to really show us what Peter Lakai can do. Now, I think that the All Blacks will actually go with Peter Lakai in their starting side at 7. I don't see them making a massive reshuffle here. So Lakai for Robertson is probably the most likely, but for me and the logic that I've put behind it, I think that Karefi would actually be the better choice for this match. Number 8, Ardie Savia. Like I said, we don't want to see too much of a reshuffle in a loose forward trio that is predominantly working. Wallace Satiti at 6, he has looked outstanding throughout November as well as the Rugby Championship. Savia just working away, finding his feet quietly, and then Sam Cane now being out leaves that big gap at number 7, which I think that Duplessis Karefi could fill quite nicely. Moving into the back line now, number 9, I have gone Cam Roigard, and number 10, Damian McKenzie. Last week, Ratama just really didn't find his momentum up against Ireland. That does not mean that that is how it would be if he went up against the French, but it certainly didn't help the confidence of the young 9. So I've gone Cam Roigard in the starting side, seeing as up against the Japanese, he was strong and he partnered quite nicely with Beauden Barrett, but that is not who I've got at 10. I have, of course, got Damian McKenzie, a man of the match performance up against the Irish last week. He got the kicks over a majority of the time, running the ball hard, and I do think up against this French side, that is exactly what you need. Yes, you could use Beauden Barrett in that fly half role, and he could do those chips and get those cutout passes and whatnot, but I do think you still need McKenzie in this lineup somewhere, and it makes a lot more sense for him to be at fly half than reverting back to 15. Moving on to the midfield combo, number 12, this is where I have selected Jordie Barrett, and number 13, Rieko Ioane. It is the stock standard for the All Blacks. I don't really see them making any massive switches in these two jerseys. Definitely not for a game up against France. Maybe next week up against Italy, we could see one, if not two new names in that centre pairing. But for now, Jordie Barrett, he'll be wanting a big game here. He's been slowly building back into it after his injury. Ioane, he is an interesting one. He's had some up and down performances, but him and Jordie Barrett seem to be the combo that they really want to cement as that 12 and 13. A little bit similar to what we've seen for the South Africans, and I know some people hate when you do the comparison between the two sides, but they've got Dialendi and Jesse Krill, and that is just completely cemented in that midfield combo. Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane is almost the New Zealand equivalent, but a lot of people aren't confident when seeing that combo out there on the field. So, of course, they want to change that. Big game here up against the French might help put them in some people's good books for the All Blacks. But looking through at the back three, this is where I have decided to make a switch. And in neither of the lineups that I gave yesterday did I do this back three. Number 11, Caleb Clark. Number 14, AJ Lamb. And number 15, Will Jordan. Now, do I think they will give Lamb the opportunity out on the right wing? I think it's about a 2% chance, if not less. They have got Sevu Reece, who of course is a Crusader, who is a Scott Robertson guy, and who has had experience at international level. AJ Lamb, he's a youngster. He's played at 13 a little bit more this year than he normally would, but he does have playing wing up his sleeve. And I honestly do think that if given the opportunity, he could actually be very strong at All Blacks level. It's just more of the factor of, is it worth risking up against a world-class side like France, or are you better off going with the safety option of Reece, or maybe even moving Will Jordan back to the right wing and putting someone else as the fullback? But I have decided to give Lamb the chance, and Will Jordan, of course, as that number 15. I think that as he gets more minutes under his belt at 15, we will slowly continue to see Will Jordan grow, which is why I don't want to see him go back out to the right wing for this game, even if maybe it's the best option. But already we know that France will be without Damien Penaud, so that is a massive win for the All Blacks in that regard. So perhaps they can go with a young guy out on that wing and see exactly how he goes up against Les Bleus. But moving on to the bench, this is where I have got the 5-3. Cody Taylor, number 16. Ofa Tuangafasi, number 17. And Pasilio Tosi as the number 18. So I've decided to give Taylor that role off the bench in this game up against the French. And that would be a massive boost to this already pretty experienced bench that I have put together. Of course, the All Blacks are looking for ways of closing out a game. That final 20 minutes where they used to be so lethal is lately where they've been struggling the most. So I've decided if Cody Taylor is going to be off the bench for the All Blacks in that late scenario, it could be the perfect replacement for Asafo Moore, who hopefully will have a game like he did up against the Irish in the starting side, and then Taylor to close out the contest. Ofa Tuangafasi and Pasilio Tosi, that is a combo that has worked extremely well over the last couple of weeks, and I do hope they stick with it rather than trying to mix and match, because if it's finally working, I don't think you want to try and fix something that's not broken. And these two in scrums laid up against the French could be extremely lethal. Number 19, this is where I've got Patrick Tuipulotu, and number 20, Samapeni Finau. Now, I wanted to put Peter Lakai in, and like I said in that last video, I've been a Peter Lakai guy since the start. In his under 20 days for New Zealand, he looked like he was going to be a future superstar. And up against the French here, that would be the perfect chance to show everyone what he can do. But I just don't know how to squeeze him into my side. If I start Duplessis Karefi, that works well, I believe. If I have Samapeni Finau off the bench, you've at least got, once again, some minutes under his belt throughout the November internationals. He did extremely well in that game up against the Japanese, in which he started rather than coming off the bench. So I've gone with Finau, but if Peter Lakai shows up in this 23-man side for Scott Robertson, I would be very happy as well. Now, we move on to the back replacements, and this is where I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. Number 21, TJ Perenara. Now, I don't think anyone's selecting him in their side up against the French, and it's extremely harsh on Cortez Ratama to take him from the starting side up against the Irish to not playing at all up against this French side, but I do think TJ's experience later on in the contest could be exactly what New Zealand need to help them close out the game. Ratama, he's had a couple decent games off the bench, but predominantly by the time they make that switch, he normally doesn't really get to find his feet throughout a game. So I've decided if you've got TJ, you've got a little bit of security near the end of a game. He works well with the man at number 22, which I have selected as Beauden Barrett. And then 23, I might as well say it now, it's Anton Leonard-Brown. So overall, the bench for this side, if this is what they went with, it would be one of the more experienced benches that they have had in recent times, which wouldn't exactly be a bad thing. But I do think if TJ gets the chance up against the French, he has to play a little bit differently to how he has the last couple performances. Needs to be really putting the foot down, trying to speed it up for the All Blacks, as that is something that most people have been critical of when it comes to TJ for 2024. But that is my All Blacks XV, ladies and gentlemen, as well as the bench for this upcoming game up against the French. I'm locking it in, my final answer before Scott Robertson announces his side later on in the night. And of course, as soon as he does, I will be letting you know exactly who has been selected. I honestly don't think this lineup that I've put together here will be even that close to what we see Scott Robertson do, but I do quite like this 23, and maybe in the future we could see something similar to it in the All Blacks jersey. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all for the next one.